2025 has been another banger of a year for games, and so I figured it'd be fun to share my personal favorite games of the year with you guys. And I guarantee you won't see a similar list anywhere else. You see, it's going to be a bit different from the usual, because the games I've chosen for this list are games I've played for the first time in 2025. One of which is a classic from 1998. I'll let you guys guess what game that is. But before we get into the meat and potatoes, that is the actual top 10, I want to give a shout out to the few runners up that were edged out of the top 10 for one reason or another. Starting with the incredibly fun Godbreakers. This is a roguelike action game that I would have typically avoided had it not been for another roguelike on this list that opened my eyes to the genre. And boy am I glad I gave it a chance. It has one of the slickest and satisfying yet simple combat systems I've seen in a game. It's easy to pick up, beautifully chaotic, yet easily readable, which is worth noting because these games are usually just a mess of flashy effects that make it hard to understand what's going on. The only reason this game is not in the top 10 is because it gets a bit repetitive after a few runs, but it's still worth playing if you're interested in the genre. Next up is Battlefield 6, a game that definitely would have been in my top 10 had I actually owned the game. Between the open beta and the free-to-play RedSec modes, I clocked just over 120 hours in total with the game. BF6 has been a monumental return for the franchise and fans alike. The game has never felt better and in my opinion is the most fun you can have in a casual multiplayer FPS right now. Next up is South of Midnight. This was a mixed bag in a sense. I love the tone, the themes, the setting, the visuals, the stories, the music. Oh my god, the music. There's moments of this game that have been etched into my brain because the music was so emotionally charged. You can't help but wonder what this game could have been had the studio found the same inspiration in the combat that's ever present in all other aspects of the game. If an action game includes a skip encounter option, it's a clear indicator that you have no faith in your combat, and sadly, the game is let down because of it. Still, I think if you can get access to this game on the cheap, whether it be via Game Pass or on a deep discount, it's still worthwhile experiencing.
This is nailed.
And last from the runners-up, it's Rise of the Ronin, a game that I personally enjoyed, but can't wholeheartedly recommend to most people for a multitude of reasons. From the confusing and weirdly paced story to the overwhelming gear system and repetitive open world activities, the game contains a lot of mediocrity in my opinion, but the saving grace is the fun and rewarding combat that keeps you coming back for more. In my video, I compared it to Sekiro, saying it sometimes manages to emulate that same satisfying back and forth dance when it comes to swordplay. Alright, before we get to the actual top 10, I would really appreciate if you could drop a like on this video. And also maybe a sub to help me reach my goal of 600 subscribers for the end of the year. It would actually mean the world to me. And with that, let's get into the video. At number 10, we have Clay Obscure Expedition 33. Now, before you take to the comments, Expedition was the most impressive game of the year, hands down. It's a near perfect game that sits among my all-timers like God of War, Elden Ring and The Last of Us. It also took me completely by surprise, as I'm not really one for turn-based games, and it managed to hook me with its impressive creativity in its world, music and characters. The amount of holy shit moments, for lack of a better term, had me wondering how anyone else in this competitive space was going to follow up with anything that was happening on screen. I wanted to put Expedition at the number 10 spot to avoid any anticipation you might feel waiting for this one to appear. And also to give the others on this list a wide berth. Look, I don't need to tell you to play this one, as everyone else in the world is already doing that. At number 9, we have Black Mesa and Half-Life. It only took me 27 years, but I finally managed to play Half-Life for the first time. And surprisingly, it still holds up all these years later. I played Black Mesa first and thought it was incredibly well made, the gunplay and first-person platforming being the standouts for me. Not to mention there's so many cinematic moments that play out all the while giving you full control of the character at all times. Usually that kind of thing is reserved for cutscenes to ensure you experience it the way the director intended. As I mentioned, I played the original Half-Life as well and found it was just as enjoyable, though it had a few niggles that come with outdated game design. In my opinion, Black Mesa is still worth a play, and more accommodating of the two, especially if you're new to gaming. At number 8 we have Silent Hill F, a game that got a bit of a mixed reception for various reasons. Personally, I thought it was great, but not without its drawbacks, the combat being the main culprit. Look, if you can look past it, there's a beautiful yet harrowing story to be told here. Plus, the voice actor for the lead character Hinako gives such a great performance that you feel every heartbreaking moment with her. By the way, I'm talking about the original voiceover, not the English dub. Don't play the English version. As I mentioned, the combat is kinda hit or miss as well, depending on what you like. Or you could do what I did for subsequent playthroughs and just play on easy mode. Either way, it's worth it just to see the story. Number 7 is another life-changing game for me, and that game is Hades. I know it was huge when it came out, and I was always hesitant to play it. Like I mentioned before, I was never into roguelikes. In fact, the term roguelike was enough to send me in the other direction. But I installed Hades on a whim after I saw the critical reception of part 2, and I'm glad I did it because it allowed me to unearth other great gems like the aforementioned Godbreakers, Abyssus, Dead Zone Rogue, and a few others. It's a bit strange putting part 1 on the list, especially with the sequel just dropped, but I want to savor that one, so it's gonna have to wait just a little bit longer. But for now, I want to recommend you try Hades if you haven't yet played it, or like me, have been avoiding roguelikes like the plague, cause this might be the one to turn you. At number 6 we have Lies of P Overture, the long-awaited DLC follow-up to the brilliant Lies of P, a game that I personally seem to love more than most. I would go so far as to say it sits among my top 3 Souls/Souls-like games, that's including all the From Software offerings. It has become my comfort game, one that I return to over and over when I want to unwind or listen to a podcast and just chill. The main attraction for me is the character build potential, the ability to hyper-focus whatever playstyle you like and run with it to an insane degree. This kind of replayability makes the game so appealing to me as something I can shut my mind off to and simply enjoy the incredibly satisfying combat and challenging boss fights. As for the DLC portion, Overture was a great addition to the Lies of P, giving us wildly differing new playable areas including a zoo and a circus fair. The new weapons were cranked up to 11 in terms of flashiness and style, which to me is everything in a weapon. And the boss fights were just as bonkers, not to mention a final fight that will test the best of you and currently sits among the hardest in the genre. Up at number 5 we have Split Fiction, an endangered species that the good folks at Hazelight Studios are fighting to keep alive. This couch co-op masterpiece proves that people still want to sit together on a couch and play a game within punching distance of each other. The kind of game where a hard stare is necessary to tell if that "my bad" was truly genuine. This is a must play if you have a family member or close friend that you enjoy simply shooting the shit with. It throws so many different ideas at you with every level and executes on them so well that every new gimmick could as well be a game on its own. Plus it has a batshit crazy ending that is just an absolute marvel in its own rights and sets a new bar for creative game design. At number 4 we have yet another throwback from over 25 years ago, and that one is of course the brutal Dino Crisis. This is a game I regret not playing a lot sooner, as I feel I would have been singing its praises a lot more than I have. I recently covered it in a video where I said it was as good as the first Resident Evil, which I hold in really high regard as my favorite of the franchise. It's incredibly challenging, with puzzles that don't hold your hand too much and make you feel like a genius when you eventually solve them. It's not for the faint of heart, but if you're up for the challenge, it is the tensest game I've played in a long time. I mean, I expect nothing less when it comes from the mind of the legend Shinji Mikami. But if you haven't played it yet, you owe it to yourself to play it if you love survival horror games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill. It's essentially Resident Evil but with dinosaurs, and I can't think of a better combination of two things that are destined to be together. Just do yourself a favor and ignore that third game. And finally, we arrive at the top 3. These were games that might not have gotten the recognition they deserve, or maybe they just landed better with some more than others. but they all hold a special place in my heart for one reason or another. And without further ado, at number 3 is Skate Story, a game that I would never have expected to have on my top 10. I'm not big on skating games. I mean, I played a bit of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater on PS1 and also my fair share of Skate back in the day, the original, not the Skate full stop mess. And I remember enjoying those games, but I was never good at it. But Skate Story is more than a simple skating game. For starters, you play as a demon, contracted by the devil to eat 7 moons in exchange for your soul. If that doesn't hook you, the soundtrack will surely be the one to stir something within you. If you haven't seen this game before, then I urge you to give it a shot, even if, like me, you don't really care about the skating genre. At first, it looks like another artsy type game, and honestly it kinda is, but it also has the gameplay to back it up, with tight and satisfying controls. Not to mention, it actually has boss fights, health bars and all. I urge you, if it is within your means, show some love to the solo dev Sam Ing, as he created a piece of art that is clearly fueled by passion and a deep appreciation for what he loves, and that deserves to be celebrated in a time where inspiration seems to be lacking in the creative space. One way the game hits so hard is the collaboration with Blood Cultures. It's a perfect pairing of music and themes and vistas the game explores. There are so many moments that are burned into my memory because the music and flow matched up so perfectly. But for now, I'll leave you with just this one. That brings us to number 2, and this one is a bit late to the show because I only had the opportunity to play it in 2025, and that is God of War Ragnarok. It's been a long 3 years waiting for the chance to play this game, and a long 3 years of avoiding spoilers. I mentioned before that God of War 2018 was near perfect and quite possibly my favorite game of all time, next to Elden Ring of course, but Ragnarok, damn, this game was a near perfect sequel. It took what is great about the original and improved on everything about it ever so slightly. My only gripe, and it's a pretty silly one, is that there's just too much game. I think it missed that sweet spot for the amount of side quests and explorable areas, which extended the game time considerably. Like I said, it's like having too much of a good thing, but I feel like the pacing of the game felt way off to me, whereas the original seemed perfect. The way I see it, the most memorable moments occur when the pacing allows for a build-up to eventually hit you with something spectacular. Remember, even your favorite chocolate loses its charm by the 50th mouthful. But hey, that's not the worst problem to have.
We will make our own destiny.
And finally, at number 1, it's Kronos: The New Dawn. Ever felt like a piece of media, whether it be a song, a movie or a game, was made for you? That's how I feel about Kronos: The New Dawn. And the strangest part about it is that I too see the flaws. And I'll even go so far as to say it's about an 8 out of 10, which has no right to be at the top of this list, but I don't care. This game has taken me by surprise in a way that I didn't expect. You see, I went from being hyped at the reveal announcement to being disappointed at the gameplay showcase, until I eventually got my hands on it and experienced it for myself. I couldn't have predicted just how much I would fall in love with this game. From the setting, the music, the themes, the characters, and most of all, the world building. In my review video, I mentioned that I'm not really one for lore, but in this game, I was poring over every document and replaying every recording to piece together the mystery of this world. I have taken to this world in a way that very few have, and yes, I do see its shortfalls, like its limited replayability, confusing plot, weird character choices, and repetitive gameplay. But I also see a game that has a deep appreciation for the things I love, like the exceptional combat and near-perfect difficulty balancing, a disturbing sci-fi dystopia setting, and coverage of themes like what it is to be human, the finite nature of time, regrets, or the lengths we'd go for the ones we love. My appreciation for this game goes above my adoration of the game itself and extends to Bloober Team, underdogs that had to prove themselves to the gaming community time and time again to eventually earn the respect of gamers with the release of Silent Hill 2 Remake and now Kronos The New Dawn. If you ask me, they understand the fundamentals to creating a great survival horror title. Now all they have to do is evolve the formula and we could see the next best thing in horror, rivaling the likes of Silent Hill and Resident Evil. And that's it for this one. Like I said, it's gonna be a top 10 you haven't seen before. I try to include a variety of games, as I'm actively trying to broaden my horizon in games, to open myself to things I never would have given a shot. Also, there's a lot of games that came out this year that I didn't get around to, like Death Stranding, Blueprints, Ghost of Yotei, Silk Song. Some of them I plan to get to, others I just don't have access to as I don't have a PS5. But I'm excited to see what 2026 holds. So for the last time in 2025, I want to thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.